What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Pros IDP Show. And I'm your host, Bob Miller. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyBobFF, and you can follow Dynasty Pros at DynastyProsFF, part of the Dynasty Pros YouTube network and the IDP Guys YouTube network as well. Be sure to go check out Dynasty Pros Football for all your latest IDP rankings and IDP trade value charts. So. And do us a big favor. If you haven't followed us yet on YouTube, go find us on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. It helps us out quite a bit. So, all right. So I've got all that out of the way. I want to welcome in a very special guest. Let's bring him in here. Leo McNeely, one of my favorite follows on Twitter. You know him as Master IDP. Leo, Master IDP, how are we doing tonight, bud?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Bob. I'm excited to haven't got a chance to talk on your channel here and talk some IDP. I'm looking forward to talking some football. That video got me excited. I'm ready for the season to start now. Hitting some guys.
I love that intro, man. I love it. Love it, man. It gets you a little jacked up. I'm ready to go tackle like my 9-year-old daughter now, or my dog or something like that. Yeah. So like I said, man, I just wanted to thank you for being a part of the show. You are one of my absolute favorite follows on Twitter. If anyone's an IDP player out there, do yourself a favor. Find Leo he's at Master IDP. Find him on Twitter immediately and go follow him. You won't regret it. I mean, your tweets are extremely educational. I learned quite a bit from you, actually, myself. So it's a pleasure having you on the show, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. That's too kind. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a fun first year. Definitely been trying to get out those educational tweets. There's always could be more that we could get out there about IDP. It seems to like an area that could use a little bit more info out there.
Of course, always. I mean, it's slowly. It just every year is just kind of doing that. So as long as we're on the rise, I think we're fighting the good fight. So for everyone that's watching us over at Dynasty Pros Network on our Twitter, Leo, you started out, I believe, with IDP Guys, correct?
That's correct. Yes, I started with them in July. I started kind of writing some articles talking about green dot and every down linebackers and defensive coordinator changes and all that fun stuff. And then jumped right into doing linebacker rankings for them. So yeah, it was a good start for me to get some experience with some knowledgeable guys like Nate and some of those other guys. And it was a great first season.
I'm such a fan. I love Nate to death, man. That guy has been so helpful for me personally. And Dynasty Pros, I can't thank him enough. He's a good guy. That whole crew over at IDP Guys, man, that's a good crew there. So you started off with IDP Guys, and you kind of branched off and started doing your own thing. You've got rpofootball.com. Tell everybody about your website, because I'm going to tell you, even before we went on the air, I was talking to you and said I absolutely love your site. If you're an IDP guy, idpguys.org is one of the top places to go. Dynasty Pros, we're trying to get there. I think we do a very good job with our stuff, but rpofootball.com has been a place that I've very much enjoyed getting a lot of info. So tell everybody about that and what you've got going on over there.
Yeah, so we started it in December, kind of near the end of the season to help people out with the playoffs. We really just at that point just put in the weekly rankings and just to kind of get a website live for the end of the season. We also added some prop bets, IDP prop bets as well onto it. But then, now that we've kind of got through the season, we started getting into dynasty rankings and rookie rankings, and we'll eventually add in projections. And we just recently added a trade value chart. Not with IDP yet, but we're trying to start build out a lot of the stuff that we see other places and that we think that can add value to people and maybe present things in a little bit different format. I like to put it in stuff that visually that you can see pretty quickly, maybe not be the most wordy, but really get to what you're looking for. I think some people would really like some of the data in a visually appealing way. So that's what we're trying to get at. It's a work in process, but it's coming along. It's been fun kind of building that out, and good to get some positive feedback as well.
Yeah, I really like what you've done. I've seen your trade values. We also have trade values over at dynastyprosfootball.com. We've got our dynasty trade values. We do have some IDP. We do have IDP trade values there, and we also have Devi trade values as well. So I like how they all kind of coincide. If someone's offering you, let's say Marvin Harrison Jr. And let's say TJ Watt for a Christian McCaffrey, you can kind of add those points up together and get an idea if it's going to be a pretty good trade or if it's going to not be a good trade. So we're working on a calculator as well. Hopefully we can have out by the end of the year that's going to coincide. It's going to include all three of those as well. So it's a little bit behind the curtain there.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's really, really hard to get values on IDPs because you and I have talked about this. There's all kinds of different scoring systems. There's not really a standard. There's not a PPR, a half-point PPR, tight end premium, super flex. There's, where it's all pretty cut and dry. With IDPs, you've got your 1, 2, 3 system. You've got different things out there. We've had a lot of folks that have reached out to us over the last 3 years that's really enjoyed our Dynasty Pros IDP scoring system. I was telling you about, it's not overly aggressive, but it's not boring and bland. They're going to score, and it makes everyone involved. Your cornerbacks actually have value for passes defended or an interception. It rewards big plays, just like a touchdown is a nice reward for your offense. If a guy gets a sack, an edge rusher gets a sack, or if a DB gets a pick, that's kind of like them scoring their touchdown. That's like Stephon Diggs catching his touchdown. If you have, Marlon Humphrey who, catches a pick or something like that. So, we just try to balance that out. But I wish there was more of a standard scoring system out there because it creates the values are all over the place. You just have to go by your league, league specific, and see how those defensive players score. So.
Yeah, I think that IDP 1, 2, 3 is probably the closest to the standard, because it's the default on Sleeper. But there really isn't, past that, there's kind of a lot of customization that's out there. But, I would push the beginners into the IDP 1, 2, 3. It's very similar to what I've played at home with my home leagues for a number of years. And that would be kind of what I would push the beginners into. I think it's a pretty decent format. And, if you want to customize down the road, that's fine. But I think if we can get more people into that kind of 1, 2, 3 scoring, I think it would help just, as we grow to kind of get,
absolutely
get more people familiar with it and just eased into it and comfortable with the system.
Yeah. Cause a lot of folks, over the years that I've gotten into IDP leagues, they're a little timid. They're a little scared. They think they're giving away money because they don't know, if they're playing in a league where half of the league is used to IDPs. They feel like they're just throwing cash away. And I can't. We have one of our riders over at Dynasty Pros, Tim Lazenby, who joined an IDP league, my home league, actually, for the first time. This is the first IDP league he's played in, and he had the best record on the season. So it doesn't matter. In our scoring system, if you have a pretty good defense, you're going to do well. So, yeah. And you were talking about Sleeper as well. What's your thoughts? First of all, are you as frustrated as I am that they don't have rookie IDPs on there yet? I'm lose my mind with this.
Yeah. It would be helpful for us to be able to, start getting some mock drafts in, start getting some IDP, ADP, getting some good ADP information is so valuable for trade value charts or just getting a feel for how these rookie drafts are going to hit in May. And we really don't have much to work on. So we're kind of at a disadvantage compared to, a lot of the offense to not have those in there. I'm still relatively new to Sleeper. Last year was my first year on there. So I'm still getting a little bit familiar with that, but that seems to be, you can go on there and for free and do mock drafts. So it seems to be the way to go with mocks, but it is a little frustrating. I know I've seen, my buddy Mace, he's gotten pretty frustrated with it and vocal about it, but they don't seem to be in a rush to prioritize
No, they don't.
that.
No, they are absolutely not in a rush. I mean, it's just we did a startup about a month ago with Dynasty Pros and with a bunch of followers and everything. We call it Devi to Dynasty, and it's full IDPs as well. And I drafted Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. Well, actually, I didn't draft Will Anderson. I drafted Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter. I drafted about 3 or 4 rookie IDPs just to put on my taxi squad, but it's like I'm glad I've put it in some notes because I mean, one day when they get added to Sleeper, I can go in and adjust my roster accordingly. So, and so you said you're new to Sleeper this year, right?
This past year, I was in one league. I got invited by my buddy Iggy. He does a FF7, I think it was called. With some pretty decent IDP scoring, so it was a blast to be in that. So that was my first experience with a redraft league, and we just started an RPO Dynasty league on Sleepers that we just got through, so that was kind of my second experience with it. So I'm still that's my second league in there, so I'm still feeling my way around it. I've got a lot more experience on my fantasy league, but still learning it.
Yeah, my fantasy league is a pretty good spot. There's a handful of others that, I think the difference with Sleeper is the dual eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked with Gary Davenport about this. I think he is absolutely not a fan of dual eligibility, and I'm kind of not the biggest fan of it either.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather than be an edge rusher, it qualifies a defensive, just like what, myfantasyleague.com does.
Mm-hmm.
They did the true position this year, which was a big help. However, it did change values. We did our trade values. It changed the values of defensive linemen substantially because, I mean, there was only 5 or 6 good defensive linemen, and they were worth all the money. You know what I'm saying? Your Nick Bosa's, your, Max Crosby's, Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, some things like that, Aiden Hutchinson coming on. Things like that. There was only a handful of them, and now that you can put T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons in those in that, it's a lot more plentiful. It almost makes linebackers almost at a premium again. It's kind of wild. But yeah, I'm not a biggest fan of the dual eligibility on there.
Mm-hmm.
It does give you a lot of flexibility with your lineups, but it was a nightmare for me doing rankings over
that's
website. I've got TJ Watt in my defensive line rankings, and then I also have him in our linebacker rankings. He's in a different spot in each, and then I had to do my overall rankings. And I'm like, okay, defensive end 1, DE/edge 1. Like I had to note who was dual eligible on those overall rankings that. If anyone hasn't seen those, you can go check those out over at dynastyprosfootball.com. But that was very tedious, yet it was kind of fun too. Cause I mean, we just love our IDPs. So I had a blast with it, but it was very, very detailed. So yeah.
Well, I would agree. I mean, it's, as a content creator, like, having to rank each week and having to keep track of, eligibility of different systems and, recommendations for who to start depending on different eligibility and everything. It's a little bit challenging. I wish there was kind of one position that all the platforms used, and we just like we were talking about, one scoring system, or one basic scoring system, one potential position designation that would help out, simplify a lot of things for like you said, trade value charts or anything else. Like, it makes a big difference when you're looking at, value-based drafting of what position people are playing. So,
and then, you and I have the Kings Classic coming up that, at the Fantasy Football Expo, it's the first year, the inaugural IDP Kings Classic, and both you and I are part of that. And Gary Davenport, the Godfather himself, has kind of designed the scoring on that. And from what we understand from our emails and the chats with him, he has made it uber aggressive to where if it, like I said, in this redraft setting that he wants you to consider taking Micah Parsons or Roquan Smith as a first round pick. Like you would consider taking one of those guys over, I don't know, CeeDee Lamb or Stephon Diggs or something. So that's pretty wild. I'm really excited, nervous, and anxious all at the same time about that, because that's going to be absolutely nuts, and I cannot wait. We'll see how that goes. Well, all right. Well, we got all that IDP chitter chatter out of the way. Let's kind of talk about what's going on in football right now. It's not the craziest week at all. I think we kind of started things off with Odell Beckham signing with the Baltimore Ravens. What's your thoughts on that pickup?
Yeah, so for full disclosure, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so maybe a little bit biased in my take here.
We won't hold that against you. I'm a Baltimore fan.
So I got to see some of his worst years, and he had one good year there. I think for me, I would be putting him kind of in the sell category, just because I think there's the injury risk that I don't know that he's going to make it through a full season. I mean, I do think by going to the Ravens, if they bring back Lamar, like, they're going to force feed him and he's going to do pretty well. But I don't know that I have faith in him making it through the whole season without pulling a hamstring or something else, or going a little bit diva on it. But he did have several good years with Eli there, and made that one good catch that everybody won't stop talking about. But as he gets older, he doesn't have that same breakaway speed that he had, and so I'm kind of more in the sell category on him.
I get it, and when this deal happened on Easter, I was at some families, and I couldn't wait to get home to write up an article on this, and over at Dynasty Pros, we do a series of articles called Dynasty Dilemmas. And we'll focus on one player, and we give you, it's someone that's trending, someone that's hot, and we will give you reasons to sell that person, reasons to buy that player. And then whoever's writing that particular article, they're going to give you their personal verdict at the end of the article. Like, okay, this is a reason to buy, this is the reason to sell. Now, this is my verdict. This is what I would do. I said, this is such a cheap and generic thing, but I kind of said buy and sell. To me, if you could take that hot name, who's most likely Baltimore's wide receiver one, if you could sell him for maybe a second round pick, or bundle him with someone, maybe get like some running back depth, because let's face it, whoever has Odell is playing with house money. You didn't draft him as a starter. Or at least you haven't depended on him to be a starter in quite some time. He's a depth piece, at the best. So if you can take him, bundle him up, and try to upgrade a running back, or even upgrade wide receiver, something like that, I'm all for it. If you can get a mid to late second round pick for him, by all means, pull the trigger as soon as you can. At least give it a try. However, kind of the points I made in that article is, I don't know if your most savvy dynasty players are going to go for that. So I was playing devil's advocate there, and I just thought, well, hell, if I can acquire him, if I can pick him up for a third round pick or a fourth round pick, I'm buying him. I mean, third and fourth round picks are dart throws as it is. I mean, there's not that many Damian Pierces or Tyler Algiers out there. Even though this is a pretty deep class as far as running backs, this draft class. But if I could take like a third or a fourth, or a third and fourth, I don't know, and go get him, I think the risk is very, very much worth the reward. You're not going to lose out on anything by giving a late rookie pick to get him. And if he turns out to put out, if he can put up 6, 7, 8 touchdowns for them, catch 60, 70 balls, I mean, that's a solid flex play for you all year. And it gives you that depth, So yeah, if you can sell high on him, grab you like a second rounder, or at least upgrade a position, I'm all for it. But if you can't, and someone has him on their team, throw him a third, throw him a fourth, see if you can spark up a conversation and see if you can grab him. Because I as long as he's on the field, he's going to be very, very useful. So that's my opinions with him. And it helps out. And I think the whole signing is they overpaid for him to get Lamar to come back. And I absolutely think that it worked. I mean, he and Lamar have been hanging out. They were in Miami together partying just the other day, Sunday night, as a matter of fact. So it seems like with Ian Rappaport and everyone's reporting it's a pretty good indication that at least Lamar is going to be back for this year. So that's good for anyone that is a Lamar owner. He has more weapons now, probably the best weapons he's had, since being a Raven. So it's all good news around as far as fantasy goes. Well, speaking of offensive players, so Jets coach Robert Saleh says that Breece Hall is looking fantastic, and he expects him back for week 1. That is phenomenal news because a couple of months ago, it was reported that he wasn't going to be ready for the season and that it was kind of like a Kyler Murray situation where he may not get back into action until midseason, which kind of like what we saw with J.K. Dobbins last year. You're not going to be in football shape. You're not going to have that explosiveness. It was just going to, even if he played, it was just going to be a completely lost season for Breece Hall and Breece Hall owners. And those people took him with their first round, their number 1 pick last year in the draft or in their rookie drafts, things like that. So it's a big, big hit. So now that he looks like he's going to be ready for week 1, what's your thoughts out there? Are you going after and trying to buy him now, or do you think people they're not selling?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know that people are selling Breece Hall, in a 2 running back league that people are selling Breece Hall for cheap these days. I think we recently started a startup and he was in the top 3 running backs as far as coming off the board in a startup. Luckily he'll be healthy here. It sounds like, the Jets don't have much behind him. They've got, Michael Carter and, trying to remember the other guy, but they don't really have much. So that would be a big detriment to them as they're making a playoff push here. I really like what they're kind of doing there on the defense and building that up. So, and if they get Aaron Rodgers and Breece Hall, they're going to be in good shape. So it's good to see that he'll be ready. I know they're gonna need him. So that's all excited. But as far as buying running backs, I don't really buy, especially this time of year, just because a lot can happen in the preseason, and so I'm more of a seller because you can use those once the draft rookie drafts happen, you can sell those off. I'd prefer to kind of push a lot of the decisions to buying closer to the season starting or the trade deadline to help with the playoff push. So I'm kind of a little bit more of a seller in April-May period than until the draft happens. And then,
well, it's Dynasty, so people are just making trades all over the place. Draft picks are being traded right now, and I mean it's nuts. So we gotta kind of play to that audience because this is Dynasty season. When the season really starts, then you're it's almost like you're bored. At least us in the Dynasty game, as Dynasty writers and operating a website, when the season starts, you're like, it's, I don't know. This is our season right now. So yeah, trades. Speaking of trades, we've got a comment here. Let's take a look here from Bigfoot Nails. That took over a team and won the championship. It's an IDP and tight end premium, super flex, 12 team, start 10 offense and 8 IDP. This offseason, I traded Nick Bolton and a 2023 112. I guess he typed in Nick Bolton twice. So he traded pick 112 and Nick Bolton for Chris Godwin and most likely an early 2024 first. Who wins this?
That's a tough one. I mean, not knowing the scoring, I'm probably gonna go more on the Godwin and the first side of it. Just because early first is better than a 1.2, and I'll take the offensive player over Bolton. Even though Bolton is personally I think he's my number 1 or 2 linebacker ranked. But going offense to defense, I mean, unless there's decent IDP scoring, I'm gonna generally go on the offensive side. I mean, we don't don't know that defense, scoring. But I think you could still find. I think there's enough. If you're following the right people, you can get some good values on the defensive side. Okay, so there is some pretty decent scoring there with Bolton. So it makes it a little bit more interesting. It's just I think the drop off when you go from Bolton probably to the next tier versus Godwin in the next tier might be a little bit harder, but that scoring makes it a little bit more even in my book. What do you think, Bob?
Well, I was right on your side, man. I thought, well, you can grab you some linebackers. I mean, linebackers, you can get, there's a lot of them that pop out of nowhere. And you and I are going to talk about some guys here in a little bit. With Bolton, I mean, Bolton's a stud. He's one of the top tier, he's one of the top linebackers in Dynasty. But the fact that he's scoring 368 points, that means that the scoring is at a premium here. I think I'm going the Bolton side. In 112, it really, really depends on who's going to be there. There are some rookie linebackers that we like. I mean, you could see, Jalen Carter, you could see Will Anderson, a couple, especially with this scoring, you could see some of these guys going in the first round of this rookie draft. And to me, what I'm thinking is that it is super flex. So someone like, let's say Hendon Hooker might slip to 112. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Jordan Addison slips there. That to me kind of offsets with a super flex. I would love to get my hands on Hendon Hooker. I think he's my number 3 quarterback in this draft. He's been that way for a long, long time. I'm not the biggest Anthony Richardson fan or Will Levis fan. So seeing that, I think I'm going that way. Let's see what else he has to say here. But the guy has 3-4 other guys that scored 250 plus. And I guess Zaire Franklin was picked up off waivers, was right behind. I like Zaire Franklin. Love him there. I guess
I mean, Franklin, he's somebody I've kind of talked a lot about because I started doing, writing these articles and researching this stuff back in July and before the season started. And, the stuff I was reading that was Franklin was number 4 on the linebacker chart behind Leonard and Speed and Carrick obviously that he passed Speed pretty quickly in the summer, but then, he kind of surprised me that, he, kind of took that job and ran from it. He was getting snaps over Bobby O. So, and then, Leonard, didn't make it all the way back. So, he's kind of in a prime spot this year going into the season. And, he's kind of owned that position and he should be calling the plays. And I think he's in a great position for the next couple of years here.
Yeah, and and he popped in something else here. He goes, look at it. I look at it as it's Godwin for 112 and Bolton for the 24 first. You can spin it that way. That could work. However, he says it's probably an early 2024 first. All right. If you're giving this guy Nick Bolton, it's going to not be as early. You know what I'm saying? So that can really offset that. And I'm looking at 2000 early first. If an early first to me is about a top 5 pick, you've got Caleb Williams, who's undoubtedly is going to be the 101. Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson, Xavier Worthy. There are going to be some really, really good players in that top 5, top 6 range. And that's
Yeah, that's kind of where I, with it being super flex and it, like you said, early first potentially, it's hard to turn that down.
He says he's picked up Nick Morrow.
Okay.
So
he's got some room in his linebackers to make that move. I hate giving away one of the best guys, but
yeah. So going back to this, I look at it as I'm trading this. I dig it. I think you could do it. If you get that 24 first, an early first for Nick Bolton, is that the way you're seeing it? That could turn into like a Marvin Harrison or something like that. Man, you do it all day. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we spent a lot of time on that, but that's what we're here for, man. We're here to help the people, man. Here to help the people. All right. So we talked about Breece Hall. Speaking of rookies and another running back, the Athletics' Bo Wolf believes that Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs could intrigue the Eagles at the end of the first round and the beginning of the second round. What's your thoughts if Jahmyr Gibbs ends up there, man? I mean, a lot of people have Bijan kind of projected to go there. I think if me or you ended up with the Eagles as a starting running back, you and I would have fantasy value. So I don't know if there's a better place for a running back to end up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I mean, I've been following Gibbs, and I was trying to get him on one of my Debbie teams last year. I couldn't get the guy to come off of him, but I misdrafted him. But I like his ability to catch out of the backfield, and I love those kind of guys that can, in a PPR league, get me those catches. Right now they've got Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell, so there's room for him to go in there and carve out a role. I mean, I was a little bit down on Philadelphia running backs with Jalen Hurts running in so many of the plays, but Miles Sanders still did put up pretty decent numbers. So it's kind of torn going into the season what Sanders was going to do, but he definitely proved that they can score out of that position.
Let's just say he does end up in Philly, and you have that. We kind of know who the top three players are going to be in your rookie draft. You've got Bijan and the two quarterbacks, so you're sitting there at 1-4. Most drafts right now, it's JSN, it's Jackson Smith and Jigba. Let's say JSN ends up somewhere like Houston, a team like that, and Jahmyr Gibbs ends up in Philadelphia. You really have to consider maybe changing things up.
Yeah, I mean, that's anything that you're deciding today may change, come April 27th. I mean, these landing spots and draft capital make a big difference with these teams, and finding the right fit could turn a guy from going from the fourth pick to the fifth, or fifth to fourth. I mean, it's a lot of these guys can move up a few spots. So don't get set in stone on who you think needs to be number 4.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's JSN, but depending on those landing spots, you can't be any more correct. That will change a lot if Gibbs ends up in a place like Philadelphia. I mean, that'd be a dream landing spot for any owner of his. So, all right, so let's move on to some of the defensive news we have out there. A couple of days ago, Jeffrey Simmons, the Titans locked him up to a 4-year, $94 million extension. Not a whole lot to talk about there. He's a pretty good, nice defensive tackle, especially for fantasy. If you're playing in IDP leagues that require you to have a starting defensive tackle, what's your thoughts on Simmons? Kind of where does he sit as far as your defensive tackles go?
Yeah, I mean, he's perfect for a defensive tackle required league. These defensive tackles actually did pretty well this year. They were kind of up there in the top in scoring with just some of those defensive ends, which was nice to see them get some love, because they don't get necessarily appreciated as much as those edge rushers. Looking at defensive tackles, I mean, you've got Quinnen Williams, you've got a couple other guys. Depending on your scoring, Simmons kind of does a little bit better on the sacks than he does on the tackles. Like Christian Wilkins might do better on the tackles, but he's right up there because of his sack production. You've got Chris Jones and DeForest Buckner and some of those other guys. I mean, he's right in that tier with those other guys.
That was with Philly, I believe. Was it Hargrave that was with Philly last year? I think just signed with them for him. Yeah, you've got a handful of guys, and then you do have Jalen Carter coming on the scene this year. So that's someone else to consider there. But yeah, Jeffrey Simmons is a hell of a defensive tackle in fantasy and as far as real life as well. So good move for the Titans, locking him up. They seem to be going through a lot of changes right now, but it seems that they're trying to keep a hold of some of the guys that they love. which kind of moves us on to the Devin White situation. It looks like, Tampa doesn't want to move off of him, but he is requesting a trade, and that broke a few hours ago. What do we think about this? I mean, this is a stud IDP player. This is one of our top tier, linebackers to have. It's part of me, I don't want to see him leave because that offense might be a little rough. Mayfield running things. So a lot more defensive opportunities and a lot more snaps for a guy like that. So, what's your thoughts? You think he moves? You think that, he's maybe a draft day trade or prior to?
Well, right now, I mean, the news just broke, earlier today. I think that they're going to try to keep him as best as they can. I mean, hopefully he doesn't get into a holdout situation or something like that. But they really don't have an easy replacement for him. He fits their team better than probably a lot of different spots. I mean, I know, they fell out of favor a little bit with some of his play, and some of the they had some complaints about his effort on some plays, and not necessarily loved in that regard, and maybe they're not willing to pay him that top money. But for a fit, I mean, that's I don't know that there's going to be too many better fits for him from a production standpoint. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with the fact that Tom Brady's gone. They're going to be on the field a lot. I undervalued him a little bit on my, I knocked him down to, I think on my dynasty rankings of LB8, and everybody else kind of had him at 3 and 4. And I'm there's something not 100% right there. And I'm just I can't put him in top 5 just because I got a sense that something wasn't sitting right there. And I don't know in a new spot, if he's going to be as valuable. So I discounted him a little bit, and we'll see. But I think he's still going to make it through the year there, and then see what happens, because I don't know that Tampa's got anything better or can make something work on draft day.
Yeah, well, I mean, I couldn't imagine a single team out there, with the exception of maybe Chicago or someone who's already filled their linebacker. But I mean, anyone would probably love to get their hands on this guy. I mean, he's a big time player. He's still young. His best years are still ahead of him, and I think anyone would jump at the opportunity to get pick him up. But if Tampa doesn't want to sell, you're probably going to have to overpay to get him, unless he just keeps making noise. So, I was looking at our rankings over at Dynasty Pros, and I have him. We've got him ranked at our number 5 linebacker, okay. Right there, just right behind, right there in front of Frankie Louvu, who I absolutely love. So,
oh wow, you guys have him pretty high. I haven't seen. I mean, I do look at other places just to kind of get a sense for trade values. What are other people doing, and it's a lot higher than what I've seen out there. So you guys must really like Frankie Louvu.
Well, it's Dynasty rankings. It's Dynasty IDP rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously in any Dynasty league, you're taking into consideration, you're taking age, landing spots. But in our scoring system, now these rankings are based off of our scoring system we talked about earlier. So Frankie Louvu was a very, very high-end player. I believe he was, I think he finished in the top 5 as far as linebackers.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we have them there. Like you said, IDP scoring systems are a hairy mess, and they could be all over the place. But any of our rankings is based off of our scoring system, and so that's how we kind of rank accordingly there. So we're moving off this Devin White thing. What about the news that broke earlier with the Falcons trading for Jeffrey Okudah? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I mean, in the offseason, they kind of revamped their whole secondary. So kind of feeling like this might come down the chain here. But, they brought in Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, and then even Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, could play the slot. I'm not sure how they're going to use him yet. But I definitely saw him kind of falling out of favor. So, not too surprised by the move, but he was recently a top pick for them. So it's kind of a little bit shocking to see, they get I think a 5th back But
Yeah, it seems like
the
they kind
fella.
of gave him away, right? I mean, that seemed like a low return for him. It's strange.
Yeah. So, but I think Atlanta needed somebody next to AJ Terrell. So like it actually works out well for everybody. He wasn't going to get much time there, and he goes to a spot that can use him. So I think it's a win-win for everybody.
And a team that's probably going to have a fairly rough offense next year, depending on their quarterback situation. But if they keep going with Desmond Ridder, then they're going to be playing a lot of defense. And that could make Okudah somewhat, make him have a little bit of fantasy value, depending on that scoring system. But if you get points for passes defended, things like that, I mean, he could be a sneaky little play for you in a bye week or something like that. So with, one thing we love about our IDP guys is we want them to be on bad offenses. We want them to be on the field as much as possible. So, well, all right. So let's move on real quick. And before we get at it, we're going to kind of talk about some of our IDP free agents, our winners and our losers here. And I'm going to start off with our guy who signed with we were talking about Bobby O with the New York Giants. That had to have been one of my favorite signings as far as this offseason goes. Last year, he had 150 plus tackles, 8 tackles for loss, was a very, very highly productive linebacker. And now he ends up with a New York Giants team where he is going to get a lot of opportunities to rack up and put up points. What's your thoughts with that signing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great fit. They really needed somebody in the middle there. They were kind of just piecing it together this past year, and 4 years, $40 million. They're committed to him. That's big time money at the linebacker position. Mm-hmm. I think it was second only to Tremaine Edmonds. So good big money. They're committed to him. I think it's a great landing spot. I mean, Indianapolis, they put Zaire Franklin ahead of him, so like they didn't appreciate him as much as what the Giants really they put into him. And I told you earlier, Bobby O was my most owned player in all of my different leagues last year, so I'm loving he's getting the prime spot, and I see him. There's no reason he shouldn't be top 10 linebacker and scoring this year.
Yeah, I actually have him. I've got him ranked as our number 11 linebacker right now. Who actually have him ranked right behind Zaire Franklin. So it's kind of they can't get rid of it. They're next to each other no matter what. So yeah, that was probably one of my favorite signings. Another one I really, really loved was Azeez Al-Shaair with the Tennessee Titans. Same thing. I think it's the same kind of situation as Bobby O. Didn't get some of the opportunity that we really wanted to see in San Fran. He did miss a few games last year. But the year before, he played pretty much almost a full season and put up incredible tackle numbers. I mean, he had over 100 tackles, but he was a little bit in a timeshare there. There was a lot of linebackers kind of being subbed in and out, and he made the best of all of his opportunities. And now he's going to get a chance to be the starting guy, to be the man there in Tennessee. So depending on their quarterback situation, their offense may not be all that great either. So just another situation where he's going to be on the field quite a bit and could absolutely rack up some tackles there in Tennessee.
Yep.
All right, Denzel Perryman. I've got a little story for this guy. He is like 50 years old, I think. I don't know. Every time I pick him up, he produces. He's a productive linebacker. And here he is now in Houston with most likely a rookie quarterback. We don't know what they're going to have at wide receiver. We'll have to wait until after the draft, but looks like a team that's going to be playing a lot of defense again. And Perryman has had some injury. He's been a little his durability has been questionable over the last couple of seasons. However, when he is on the field, he is absolutely a monster. He's a productive linebacker, is about as productive as you can get. And so that's another signing, a sneaky little signing. When I'm doing these IDP drafts, he's way, way down the list. Mm-hmm. And depending on your scoring, I'm picking him up everywhere I can get my hands on him because he is a great depth piece, a flex. If you use an IDP flex, I love him. I think he's I don't know if you use him in any of your leagues, but he's a guy that is just constantly produced when he's on the field.
Yeah, I don't know that I own him anywhere, but I've been ranking him for the whole year, and very interested to see how that Houston linebacker room shakes out.
They got pretty good.
I put out a poll yesterday that was kind of like, who's going to get the most snaps? Because I really don't know between Christian Harris, Christian Kirksey, and Denzel Perryman. They've got a new head coach, D'Amico Ryans. Like, maybe he handpicked Perryman to come in. I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting. Perryman also one of my favorites because he's probably one of the only NFL players that's interacted with some of my tweets. So he's a person near and dear to me that, we don't get too much interaction with NFL players, but he's liked a couple things that, when I put his name in the, top 12 linebacker pick for the week or something like that, he's appreciated that. So I think he could turn out to have a great season. And like you said, it's all about you're drafting him later.
Mm-hmm.
He could be that guy that falls right into a top spot if D'Amico Ryans likes him and he stays healthy, like you said. He could be a steal for you late.
Yeah, you're not giving anything for him really, and he can be. And to me, he's outproduced all of his ADP everything over the last several seasons when he was in Vegas and everything like that. So I got a little bit of a sweet tooth for that guy. As that dude could be 45 years old, and I'm going to find a way to get him on my roster. He's gonna do something there. He'll be in my starting lineup at least once. Who knows? But all right, so that was a handful of guys that stuck out to me that were my free agency winners. Who's some guys that sticks out to you that you're getting your hands on?
Well, so I guess some of the guys that I'm looking at is like, well, who are some guys that that their situation improved by somebody, whether it's them going to a spot or somebody leaving. So like some of the guys I'm keeping an eye on are like Ernest Jones, because Bobby Wagner departed and they really don't have anything else. I mean, we still have a little bit of free agency left and we still have the NFL draft and that could all change. But like right now, Ernest Jones is in a prime spot to really take that next step. I mean, there's nobody else to compete with. So I'm keeping an eye on guys like that are going into us, right now, there's no competition for them and they're going to be, the Rams are going to be on the field a bunch. Like, that's prime opportunity to being on the field and being on the field a lot. Will be a lot of tackle opportunities. He's not the best player, but it's a lot of it's about opportunities. So
absolutely.
And so another guy that's potentially has guys leaving is Nakobe Dean in Philadelphia. TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, they left, so he's potentially getting that spot. He's only got to right now fight off Nicholas Morrow, which Morrow didn't get signed for more than a couple million, I think. So a 1-year guy. So I think Nakobe Dean could, I think everybody in Dynasty has been waiting for him to get the opportunity.
Oh yeah.
So I think even though he, from free agency he didn't get a contract or anything, but he won on free agency because people left. So I'm looking at those guys. But then as far as the big free agent is Tremaine Edmonds. He got that big contract. Mm-hmm. I mean, he does have competition with TJ Edwards, but 4 years, $72 million. They're committed to Tremaine Edmonds. He was fine. He was falling down a little bit in my rankings in Buffalo, having to fight off Matt Milano. But I think going to Chicago, with Matt Eberflus, I think that's really going to be productive for him. Especially from a dynasty, you've got 4 years locked up and pretty good defense. I'm pretty excited about that. What do you think about Tremaine Edmonds there?
Yeah, everything you just said. I mean, to the common guy, you're going to think that the TJ Edwards signing is going to obviously have some kind of effect on it. But listen, I mean, Edmonds got the highest contract, per year as a linebacker's ever gotten. So I think he's going to be very, very productive. I don't know if he's going to be highly, highly productive. Mm-hmm. We'll have to see. And, that division really plays a part. if obviously, Aaron Rodgers won't be in Green Bay this coming season. So you've got Jordan Love there. So they may lean more on the run there in Green Bay. So there's 2 games you're playing, where he might rack up some tackles against Aaron Jones. Detroit, they're going to throw the ball all over the place. Minnesota, more of a balanced offense there. So, there's 6 games right there that they're going to be playing again. 2 of those teams are going to probably have a lot of running plays. So, there's going to have a lot of opportunity for tackles there. I know that's just a handful of games, but it's some things I certainly look at when I'm looking at IDP players is that division and how the other team plays. But I think it really, really depends on TJ Edwards. I think Edmonds is going to be a productive linebacker, but I don't know if I would have him as, a top 10 type of linebacker. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think both of those guys are going to have productive seasons. So, I mean, in a redraft format, like I probably have them pretty even, but for Dynasty, I'm gonna go with Edmonds because he's
absolutely
got that bigger contract and
he got the money. Yeah,
yeah.
He ain't going anywhere.
So he'll be fine for you. And you're really in Dynasty looking at that 3 to 4 year window on a lot of guys, and
absolutely
that's exactly what he's getting there.
And people like you saw what kind of numbers Roquan put up there. If he plays that same kind of spot, who knows? There's nothing wrong with having 2 good linebackers. I mean, Roquan and Patrick Queen put up great points this past season for Baltimore. So, I don't think it's going to hurt him a whole lot. It just that's one of those things we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, you can't predict anything right now. We're going to have to see, and once they hit the field, what kind of points each one of those guys are going to be putting up there. So, yeah, it's good stuff there with Tremaine Edmonds.
Well, yeah, I mean, also going I was going to say with Eberflus, I mean, he came from the Colts, I think, and he had Bobby O and Leonard, Shaq Leonard there. So like, I mean, he likes having those 2 linebackers and they can both be productive. So I'm thinking that's going to be a good fit for him. And you saw what Roquan did there.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I think he's going to be a productive player. I want to see if he can be like a higher end type of productive player, because I think we have those kind of a lot of people have those expectations, especially with that money he's being paid. So, all right. So we've talked about some of our winners.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to some of our free agent losers. I'll just get right into it. Speaking of Chicago, when these signings happened, I think back-to-back days or something like that. I had so many shares of Jack Sanborn. Like 24 years old or something. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's, my Lord, he was putting up points. He was racking them up. And not the greatest player. However, he had the opportunity and he was putting up some tackles and a very, very productive linebacker for fantasy. And then these signings happen. And I'm like, dude, Sanborn's he's droppable now, And it kind of broke my heart a little bit. Here I thought I picked up a nice little diamond in the rough on the waiver wire, and now I've got to I feel like I'm wasting a roster spot with him on there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you hit, that's probably like I was on a call a few weeks ago, and it's like, who's the biggest, impact of free agents? And I thought it was Sanborn going downward. Most people were thinking of people going up, and I'm like, Sanborn going down was my biggest one because, yeah, they brought in those 2 guys, right, and it's just value dropped overnight, and they even brought in Dylan Cole as the 3rd guy. So like, I mean, he's going to be even fighting for 3rd or 4th. If one of those guys got injured, he might be something. But yeah, to stash him, his value went down overnight, and I thought he was going into camp. I knew they'd bring in somebody, like one player, but so I thought he'd be in a good spot for the competition for 2nd. But kind of shocked me that it just cleared it all out, and he got moved down pretty quickly. So I didn't have any shares of Sanborn, but I was cheering for everybody that did have one, and I was kind of cheering him from the sidelines that I was hoping he would get a shot.
Oh, I thought I was a genius. I mean, you pick up that guy off the waiver wire, and then he's like a startable dude week in and week out. I'm like, I am an IDP genius. I know my stuff. No, I just got lucky. And now the luck's gone. Now the luck's gone. He's gone as well. Speaking of kind of muddied up linebacker rooms, what about in Kansas City there? They go and pick up Drew Tranquill, yet they have Willie Gay and they've got our boy Nick Bolton. What is going on there? I mean, Tranquill was another guy that was a rosterable linebacker that was productive, not highly productive, but a productive linebacker nonetheless. What's your thoughts with him ending up in Kansas City now? I think Bolton's a stud. We're not going anywhere with that. But Tranquill, Willie Gay, I mean, what do we think about this?
That's a tough one. And when it first came down, I was confused.
Absolutely.
Is Willie Gay falling out of favor? I mean, he had that suspension.
Is he traded? Is he going to be a draft day trade or something?
Yeah. Did they fall out of, did something with his effort or something that they just didn't like, something off the field that they didn't like, but nothing of that's come out since those moves have happened. So I'm still not sure, but Tranquill got signed for pretty cheap. So it's like, he didn't make big money. Like you see even some of these other tier guys that are, that are kind of coming in, that they're getting paid more than Tranquill. I think Aziz Al-Shair got paid more. We finally saw some production that you could get Tranquill out on the field after he got healthy. And I think we've been all waiting for him to be productive. And then to see him take a step back with this competition with Willie Gay is kind of disappointing. I was really hoping he would go to a great landing spot. I'm really not sure yet what their plan is of how they're going to use those guys. I mean, I know Tranquill's great in coverage, and maybe they'll try to get Willie Gay to blitz a little bit more. I'm not really sure.
Yeah,
I hope we get more news.
He may have gotten that. I mean, he may not have gotten broke off because he's a 27-year-old guy going into his 28th year. I mean, he's going to be a 27, 28-year-old guy. So who knows how much time he really has left. But the fact that they were he's a solid ball player. He's a solid linebacker. And the fact that Kansas City could get him for that type of contract, I mean, to me, it was kind of a no-brainer, especially with some of the money these guys are getting. Maybe he took less to go there to hop on that train in Kansas City. I mean, he played against them twice a year, and they're a Super Bowl champion caliber team every year. So, take a few dollars less, and I'll go hop on that ride and maybe get me a ring or two. Maybe that's what it is. I'll play, I'll play less. I'll know my role. That's probably how I see it, so good for him, but not good for his IDP owners out there. So I don't know if he's, depending on what they do with Willie Gay, I don't know if this guy is going to be playable at all in a starting lineup. So I don't know. Yeah. You got a couple of guys at all that you see as kind of free agent losers?
Well, yeah, I mean, you covered the two that I was the first two that came to mind. So
sorry.
I'm like, well, no. So a couple guys that I was thinking of, like Xavier Woods in Carolina. They've kind of, they brought in Von Bell. They have Jeremy Chin. I think they brought in another guy recently. I don't know if it's Bobby McCann or somebody, but or Eric Rowe, but one of those guys. So they've got a crowded room right now, and with Von Bell and Jeremy Chin both being able to play decent in the box, I really don't know how much playing time or production you're going to get out of Xavier Woods in the current year. What do you think about Xavier Woods?
I completely agree. It depends on where they play him.
Mm-hmm.
To me, are they going to play him mainly at safety? Or will they play him more as kind of like a, I don't know, like a nickel corner or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'd be interested to see how they're going to use these guys. So we gotta wait till training camp to figure some of that out.
Honestly, I don't think it means it makes a matter at all. Even if he is a nickel corner at best, I can't see any kind of a situation where he's a productive IDP player whatsoever. I think he can very well be left on the waiver wire unless there's some kind of an injury and he has to step in. So lots of safeties out there that were quite surprising last year. I mean, Tafanga and Jalen Petrie, and there's a lot of guys out there depending on your scoring. I mean, if you count return yards, which all my IDP leagues do, all of my leagues, I count return yards, punt and kick returns. And, Marcus Jones was an absolute friggin' cheat code last year. So it really, really depends on your scoring. So I just can't see any kind of situation where Woods is a playable IDP player at all. Anybody else that sticks out to you?
So I'm good. I'd look at the, what we had in the, I guess what you'd call the Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker room this past year with Miles Jack and Devin Bush. Devin Bush, we got excited for a minute that he got signed in Seattle. We're like, okay, they're going to play him for half of the year while Jordan Brooks gets healthy. And then they went ahead and signed Bobby Wagner. So Devin Bush, he went down not only last year with Pittsburgh, but then now he's, down in Seattle. So, and then Miles Jack, he's still a free agent. So, like, he hasn't been signed. They're having, somebody hasn't jumped on him. So, like, that whole Pittsburgh linebacker room got cleared out, and they brought in Cole Holcomb and I think Landon Roberts. So they just cleared it all those guys. Devin Bush, he got drafted, when you were looking at rookie drafts, I mean, he got drafted right next to Devin White. People were like, Devin White.
I wanted him bad. I was pissed. That was the 2019 draft that was in Nashville. I was actually at that draft, and I was out in the absolute chaos on Broadway there in Nashville, and I was mad as heck. I was hoping he would slip to the Ravens there. And then I think Pittsburgh, I wonder if they traded up. I think that they may have traded up to go grab him. I was so mad because on top of it all, it was Pittsburgh of all teams. So, but he's ended up being a pretty, I don't want to call it a bust, but I mean, for a first round linebacker, absolutely, just seems like it. So yeah, you're right. Guy can't seem to win for anything. Goes to Seattle, and Jordan Brooks gets back, and who knows where Bush is going to end up again. So Miles Jack was another guy. I always loved some Miles Jack, and the fact that no one's picked him up yet, it's a little surprising. He is a very, very athletic guy. I mean, and absolutely would be helpful for a team. So to me, I just don't know if he has a very good agent or not. Maybe he's trying to get a little too much money or something. But the fact that he remains unsigned is a little baffling for me. So, well, all right. Before we get out of here, let's talk about a few rookies that we like as far as the draft coming up. Some IDP rookies that we like. I don't know if we're just going to be grabbing at low-hanging fruit here or not. I know you're a big Will Anderson fan, and who in the heck isn't? I kind of dig Jalen Carter quite a bit. But like I said, those are just like obvious choices. It seems I like Brian Branch quite a bit because I don't know if there's a lot of safeties out there that are going to be very, very productive. But those are some guys that stick out to me. Will Anderson for you, does he, wherever he gets drafted, let's say it's Arizona at 3, which I don't think it'll be Arizona at 3. I think they trade out of that spot. But wherever he ends up, he's going to be a stud. Do you place him in kind of your top 5 defensive linemen in dynasty rankings immediately, or are you thinking more top 10?
That's a tough one. I think it's going to depend on where he goes, and I haven't been digging too far in, but I mean he's my top defensive rookie on the board. I think just he's a blue chipper as far as prospects. I mean, if you're going to pick one defensive player that's going to potentially be a Pro Bowler or be in the league for a long time, it's Will Anderson. I still need to do some research kind of where I think he's going to fall. I mean, I don't know that I put him up with Aiden Hutchinson at this point, but for some of those guys that came off last year, but where does he fall next to Thibodeau and some of those other guys? I'm still kind of working through that. I'm probably more of a specialist in linebackers and defensive backs and defensive linemen. I finished number 1 at defensive line on Fantasy Pros,
You were only the number 1 IDP
but
ranker
defensive line isn't necessarily my strongest or most knowledgeable position. So I'm still researching these guys and still kind of figuring that out. I'm not necessarily a big college guy either. So like I'm still playing catch up to some of these guys that have been doing Devy on the defensive side. I only pretty much have Devy on the offensive side in my league. So I'm still learning, but from everything I've read, he's the number 1 guy. So like if I've got a chance to get him in a decent scoring league with sacks for defensive linemen, I'm looking at him at the end of the first round right now. But how does he stack up against some of those other guys? Like, you got to put Parsons and someone, Miles Garrett.
I've got him, over at dynastyprosfootball.com. We have our rankings like we were talking about earlier in the show. We do have our rookies placed in our Dynasty rankings right now. So I have Will Anderson as a top 10 defensive lineman. In fact, we've got him ranked at number 7, right behind Max Crosby and right in front of people like Brian Burns, Hassan Reddick, Chase Young, some guys like that. Chase Young's a whole different subject. But I've got him right behind. We got Bosa's number 1, Micah Parsons number 2, Aiden Hutchinson's number 3, Myles Garrett. We have 4, T.J. Watt 5, 6, Max Crosby, and then Will Anderson Jr. there at 7. So pretty aggressive there, but with his skill set, he's a big time player and he could blow up, week 1. So he could be a nice, asset and absolutely worthy of a first round pick in any kind of IDP rookie draft, or any rookie draft that includes IDP. He could,
some
rounder.
I was going to say some of those defensive line take some time to adjust, but I think he's got a shot to be from day 1 to be out there and be productive. So like, especially if he finds the right team that's going to put him out there, he could be putting up decent numbers in year 1, which would be great for anybody that drafts him.
Yeah, and I'm almost equally as high. I think a little bit better all around edge player would be Tyree Wilson. I see Tyree Wilson being more of like a Matthew Judon type of player, to where I think he's a stronger, a little bit more, kind of a manlier type of a defensive end that not only can get to the quarterback, but be a little bit of a bully and not just rely on his speed. So he can really, I think he's going to be a great tackle for loss guy. And I think that he's going to be more of like, kind of like I was saying with Matthew Judon and people like Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney was never like a highly, a high-end IDP player, but the guy interrupted plays. He disrupted the quarterback so much, and you don't get points for that. But I really think Tyree is a guy for me that really sticks out, that I think can be a better all-around defensive end or edge, where Will Anderson, I think, is going to have to put on a little bit more weight, get a little stronger, to where he can be on the field a little bit more. He might be one of those pass rushing specialists, and that could be right about it to start off. So he may not see the field as much, whereas I think Tyree could be a 3-down type of edge. So that's something to keep in mind if you score for tackles for loss and things like that. I think Tyree could be a nice bargain for you. With Will Anderson getting all the hype, Tyree's a guy that really sticks out to me.
Yeah, and I love drafting the second guy a lot of times. You get better value if you're not taking the top guy. So like, I'm completely on board with you of like, if you can get that next guy at a cheaper price, those first guys usually at a premium. Get that second guy off the board, and sometimes your second guy, it might be third or fourth that the other people are looking at. So like, if you can identify Tyree Wilson, get him cheaper than Will Anderson, like I'm all for that.
Yeah, Devin Bush, Devin White. I think a lot of people, just because Devin Bush ended up in Pittsburgh, and a lot of those rookie IDP rookie drafts, it was rare that I saw Devin White go above him.
Yeah,
So,
I'm trying to think back. I think, yeah, from what I remember, it was pretty even from what I remember. Like I don't think I had to make the decision. I didn't, but I was struggling with if I did get the situation, who was I going to take, and it seemed pretty even back then.
yeah, I mean, I remember I was in not me. I was in a draft, and I remember I was driving down the road, and my pick came up. Or actually a buddy of mine's pick came up, and I was one pick behind him, and I just was like looking at his team, and I was like, he needs linebacker help. I was trying to do everything I could to swap just places with him. I was trying to give him another pick because I wanted to take Devin Bush. I wanted Devin Bush so bad. I thought he was going to be a stud for a linebacker. And dude would not make the deal with me, and I think he knew why. He wanted to grab Bush himself. He grabs him, and in the next pick, I was so mad. I pulled over the side of the road, talking to this guy, trying to make the deal. And I was so pissed off that I just had to settle and take the next best IDP that I saw, and that was a guy named Nick Bosa. So
all worked out.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did. I was pretty happy about that. So, but not at the time. So, real quick before we wrap it up, are there any like under the radar rookie IDPs that you like at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a guy I've been looking at is BJ Ojulari. Depending on how far you're going down your list, I mean, some people there, diehards on this stuff, may know his name, but the casual person that's still kind of learning some of these players, he's a little bit further down the list. I'm looking at him as somebody that's got all the tools. He may take a little bit of time, but I think he's, his brother's Aziz is in the league, and I think BJ's even better than him. He's got a lot of that pass rushing ability. I mean, he's going to have to add on, some of the run defense, and hopefully that comes over time. But see all the physical tools there and ability. So I'd be somebody I would kind of stash on my taxi squad and kind of let him play out the first year and hope in year two he takes that jump.
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very good one. I've got a guy that really sticks out to me, Dayon Henley out of Washington State, middle linebacker. Drew Sanders, Noah Sewell, there's a handful of Trenton Simpson, I believe, out of Clemson. I mean, some of these guys are really, really stealing the spotlight when it comes to your inside linebackers. But we all know how important inside linebackers are for IDP players out there. And Henley is a guy that really, really sticks out to me. Really, really under the radar. And he could be a day 3 pick. And whoever gets their hands on this guy is going to be counting their blessings. This is an NFL starting caliber linebacker. He could be a day 2 pick. Who knows? It certainly wouldn't surprise me, but there's not a lot out there. But I'm not an NFL scout, and I just see certain things. These guys see a lot more. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was went maybe round 3 of the NFL draft. But if he slips to the 4th or 5th round, or even goes undrafted, holy moly! This, as far as an IDP player, this guy you could grab probably in the 4th round of your rookie drafts. I think he's absolutely worth taking a stab at, especially if you can maybe acquire. If you have somebody in, 2 or 3 players in mind in the 4th round, towards the end of your rookie draft, people are trying to get rid of some of those picks. They're like, oh, all the good players are gone. I don't want to throw away a 4th round pick and on somebody I'm just going to drop. So maybe go try and pick that up for something. I don't know. And I certainly would do that and take a chance on this guy. I would pick him up, put him on a taxi squad. It's low risk, high reward, but I really, really see in him becoming a force on the inside for whoever picks him up. It's not going to be immediate, but the cream rises to the top. And I think this guy, maybe even by the end of his rookie year, is going to be seeing quite a bit of time. And just like, your Nakobe Dean truthers out there that are loving the opportunity that he's getting, this could be the same kind of situation. So Dayon Henley, go grab him up, and you can thank me later for that. So.
Yeah, I mean, but you also think about other guys that are getting those opportunities that are drafted a little bit later. I mean, you're talking about the Asamoahs and the Terrell Bernards. Like, I mean, those guys weren't in the top 5 in a lot of rookie drafts last year. They were a little bit lower down, and as far as IDP rookie drafts, and now they're getting that chance, and there's no reason that Henley can't. I mean, we'll see what kind of fit he has and what he does with his opportunity. But like you said, it sounds like he's got the ability, and then all he needs is an opportunity and see what he can do.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, hey, man, I just wanted to thank you again for being a part of the show. It was an absolute honor having you on. Like I said, you are by far one of my favorite follows on Twitter. So if anyone out there is an IDP player and you're not following Leo, go follow him right now at Master IDP. And if you're not so, if you don't mind, give me a follow too at Dynasty Bob FF. Go find rpofootball.com. Wonderful website. Go check us out at dynastyprosfootball.com as well. And if you don't care, find us on YouTube and hit the subscribe or the little bell for notifications and yada yada yada. Help us all out here. So for myself, for Leo, I want to thank you all for watching tonight's show. Be on the lookout. We're going to be doing an IDP show about every other week through the off season. So look for us in a couple of weeks and we'll be back at you. So for myself, for Leo, we want to thank you for watching. You all have a good evening. Thank you.